e-commerce site is one of many, many pages, is one of the contact pages, is one of the privacy and terms and conditions. It's a lot more than that, right? You got to provide some value and content for your users that are visiting your website and e-commerce, but also you want to give them a sense that you're a website, you're an online store that they can trust. They can actually give you their credit card details and purchase from you. So it's not all about that. You got to give them the whole experience. You got to give them experience that their mobile device can actually load your website with a pretty good speed. So all of that is not just one page on your website. And this is why we're treating a website as a wide ecosystem for everything. And I don't know if that's true if you're losing conversions, because 60% of all consumers loves reading content before purchasing something. And 82% of consumers feel more positive about a company after reading content they produce. And 70% of consumers feel closer to a company as a result of content marketing. Imagine that you're bringing some solutions to them that they never thought of, or you're bringing an influencer to talk about their challenges with parenting, and you're trying to solve an issue along with your product that can solve a lot of parents' struggles on the day-to-day. Or imagine that you're selling a product or a toy or a smart toy that can actually help students or help young kids to develop mathematical skills, that all of the things that can help people to actually purchase your product. So why are we losing conversions at the end of the day? I'm not really sure. And you can buy everything. You can buy meet your buyer's journey in any way that you want. You can meet them at the top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. It's all up to you. What kind of content are you planning to produce? Do you want to produce content like a case study that can help people to convert? Or do you want to create like listicles, top 10, shoes to make you run better? Or maybe do you want to produce some content around the product and guide how to use the product? So it's going to bring you a lot of bottom of the funnel users. So it's really up to you what content are you producing. And it's really effective, right? Like we're talking email, live events. Do you know how much budget, how much money that are you going to take with the live events? And the ROI is going to be crazy because we're using so much budget to create these live events and so many resources. With content marketing, it's like the numbers speaks for themselves. It's really effective for you. And so where are we going to place all this content on our store, right? We have like blog, magazine, we have so many things that we can do on our store. First, we need to understand the audience and what's interesting for them. So what do they care about? Do they care about a specific guide on how to use a product? Or maybe they need a specific tips category. Maybe you're trying to sell a Botox or something like that, and they need to know how to use it, or a tip for a day-to-day, or maybe for the first purchase, what do you need to know? A gallery, maybe you could create a gallery before and after, testimonials, case studies, or maybe they care about video tutorials, all things that you basically need to understand what's interesting for your content, for your audience, and also to tie it up with the funnel staging. What are they reading? Are they reading long format content, short format content? Is it formal, informal? All of that should take into consideration. And what would be useful for this audience? Is it, listicles, maybe reviews on your website, maybe it's a product information, maybe you can create like a mini webinar or mini guide, like an online recorded guide for the first time that you're using my product. Or maybe you can create some tutorials on how to purchase your first time. Maybe it's something, the funnel is a little bit complicated. All those things can be incorporated into your thoughts about what will be useful and actually give value to my audience before their purchase, or maybe after their first purchase, and you want them to keep purchase more. So where do I find ideas? How do I get to it? First, competitors. Is my competitor doing better than me? Let's see why. Track your competitors. Always understand what they're doing good and how you can outsmart them. This is super important. You can just track every page via automation SEO tools like SEMrush or anything like that. But you can also, just follow their email newsletters, read their blog always, all the time, follow their social media, and see what they're trying to focus on, what kind of audience they're trying to target, and through what kind of content. and trends. You know, we're living in a fast moving world. Everything is super fast here. So if you have a trend via TikTok or anything like a social trend that you're trying to follow, this is the place. Always trying to see what is the new hot thing that you're maybe trying to miss and create a real-time marketing opportunities for you. Polls, always try to read some polls from the industry, or maybe create one. Maybe you can use your own audience to get some data and understand what's really interesting for them. When I used to work in a company, we created the polls for the company newsletter. We used to roll out like a newsletter from our content marketing department, and we really wanted to be focused on what's interesting for the audiences. And we were really surprised because we used to share a lot of blog ideas and stuff like that. But the main audience for us was basically interested for product updates, like interviews with some specialists or influencers. So we actually changed, you know, all our strategy with our newsletter. So all the things that data can help you figure out a lot of the things that your audience is interested about. So we got the traffic, and now we want to convert the traffic into sales. So how are we going to do it? Pop-ups on your store. I'm sure you're all using it, but try and read some best practices or test it for an A/B test, like an opportunity is not to bug your clients, and make sure your pop-up is not really blind for your customers. Make it appealing. Use chatbots, maybe. Always use something that can actually help the user and understand like what's the next step. You know, free stuff is great. Maybe they maybe divide it in as mini campaigns inside your store, not only, you know, like a general pop-up. Try to divide it as many segments that you can do. Browser push notifications. I really love this tool because it's really, really effective. You can basically grab your user, whatever they are going. They're just like you send them a push through a system, a third party, and they get it whatever they are on their laptop, mobile, whatever. And it's really, really effective. And you can segment your audience with the best way. You can segment it to users that are visited only the blog, so they're top of the funnel, or users that are visited the product more than a couple of times, so they're top of the bottom of the funnel. So you can actually segment your messaging and like send really value notifications to help them better convert, or specific deals maybe. CTAs, we're talking about making a clear CTA that people can purchase, not text link, buttons, something that can actually bring conversions. And of course, don't forget retargeting, because, you know, 36% of all SEM professionals think that we're underusing retargeting as an option here. So this is very, very crucial for you. You have someone, a visitor that visited your website, or maybe forget some things on their little basket on your website. Try to retarget them and purchase more. So my client of mine is an online store for smart toys. And they had just a couple of landing pages, homepage and product pages on their website. And I told them, listen, we got to revive the website with some content in order to get some rankings. And the first thing that he let me do is also take care of the product pages, which we can bring some more value content inside and how-to guides and things like that. But the more things that we've done is to create a blog. We created a blog with two sections. One was very general blog about play, smart toys, STEM toys, and things like that. But the other one was learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube, for example. And all that can basically help them. It's a Rubik's connected toy. So you can totally see the stats. It was amazing. Once we just started to generate some content to the website, it was exploding, because we've done a very good job with finalizing the content that we want to place there. We finalized the content that should be top of the funnel or bottom of the funnel. It went like crazy, and it's still going, by the way. So we got 400% uplift with traffic, and we've got 60% more with uplift with conversions, actual people that actually converted either from the blog section, but they converted also by just exploring the website, because the website is an ecosystem. So don't be afraid. Create content, user research, make a really dedicated research only for content strategy, and try to understand what can be driving your audience through content to buy your product. That's it. Thank you.
Well, Liras, you rushed through that interesting presentation so fast. You said so many interesting things. We will definitely go back to that in the Q&A section. Already coming some questions, which we're going to be asking at the end.
Cool.
If you have a quick comment, you still have a couple of minutes to go, or if you'd like to keep that for the last part in the Q&A, that's also okay.
Yeah, I think we should. I think that's the only thing that you should place in mind, that when you're producing content, don't just think about blog. It's just like a common thing that newcomers say, hey, but I don't want to create a blog. It's like a blog. Blog is okay. It's like a basic. Think more than that. Think of, content could be anything. It could be videos, and it could be tutorials, and it could be guides, tips, anything, galleries. So just think of a way for people that what's really interesting for your audience. That is the key to help you solve all your dilemmas about that.
Thank you for that insight. We're still receiving questions which we're gonna ask at the end. I will move forward with our next speaker. We'll come back to Liras at the end in the Q&A section.
Thank you.
So as I said, our next speaker I'm gonna present to you, he's from Poland. His name is Michał Kasprzyk, and I'm gonna tell you a few words about him. He comes from the company Clever Hearted Showrunners, and he's going to be talking about the do's and don'ts of branded podcasting. Michał loves storytelling. He focuses on telling stories that give value to listeners and on teaching people how to tell such stories. He specializes in two areas, podcasting and public speaking. He produced podcasts for companies such as Crédit Agricole and Nokia. As a public speaking coach, he spoke at events like I Love Marketing, InfoShare, and TEDx Katowice. So now I'll give the floor to Michał. You can give us your presentation.
Yep, I'm just gonna share. Hello, everyone. Okay, there's my screen. Adding to what Liras said, content can also be podcasts, right? And the thing with podcasts is that with the rise of the medium, the fact that it's actually coming back, because it's over 15 years old, but now we see the boom. There's many people that actually do a lot of mistakes, and I'd like you not to commit these mistakes. So I'm just going to tell you a few things about the do's and don'ts of branded podcasting. And to start with this, people not treating podcasts as a valid marketing medium because it's niche. While okay, maybe in Europe we are still growing, but we are already pretty far. And I'm coming from Poland, and in Poland the market develops really quickly, and from what I see in other European countries as well. But in order to understand how mainstream podcasts already are, some people are earning millions of dollars based on their podcasts alone, like Joe Rogan. Then we have the Obamas working with Spotify, which is bonkers, right? Barack Obama making a podcast with Bruce Springsteen. That's amazing. BBC works with Hans Zimmer, who is an Oscar winner. So we have Oscar winners working for the podcasting industry already. We have companion podcasts for games like The Last of Us, or TV shows like Chernobyl or Lovecraft Country, right? And we have Hollywood that creates TV series and movies based on podcasts, and there's more and more of them coming. And to top it all, this guy, if you remember this guy, he also has a podcast. But other than that, podcasts are a great medium because they lift brands in so many different ways. And it's research from 2 years ago from BBC that showed that podcasts lift brands in terms of awareness, consideration, favorability, intent. So basically, you can put this medium at almost any level of the marketing funnel, and it's going to work. Of course, you have to adapt. You have to use it in a specific way to make it right. But you should treat it as a proper marketing tool. And this is the first do. Please treat it as a proper marketing tool. Okay, but when I'm talking about podcast, I'm actually talking about the because there's so many there's so much confusion going around. They're on-demand audio files, not video files. So I'm putting the video casts aside. I'm talking about audio only. And as for me, my experience. Well, Dimitar already said all of it. So let's just skip to the next. Don't. I'm just going to start talking and record it on my phone. This is okay. I mean, when you want to start podcasting, just start podcasting. Sure, the advice, just go for it is good. But if you're a brand, then putting out there something of bad quality can actually damage your brand rather than help you. So I would not do it like that. I would put some thought into it beforehand, and I'm going to tell you a few things about it. But this first one, recording on the phone, well, there's research, fortunately, saying that the better sound quality you have, the better you are perceived by people. And this is in terms of whether your talk is good or you're a smart speaker, you're a likable person, and your research is important, right? So in this particular chart, the dark one is high quality audio, the light one is low quality audio of the same video speech. Right, and research shows that the higher quality of your audio, the better. So buy a proper microphone. It's really not a huge investment, because €50 or €100 will get you a long way. So take care of it at the beginning. But there's more things to do, obviously, and there are some more misconceptions, like this one. Number of downloads is the most important metric. This is the one that people look at the most, right? How many people downloaded my podcast? How many people listened? Well, from the number of downloads, you actually don't know how many people listened, because in order for the listen to count, it actually, people actually have to listen to something around 10 seconds, which is almost nothing, right? So there are other metrics you have to look at, like how much of an episode people actually listened in percentage. You see a chart like that in your statistics, and it's a lot more important metric. But this connects to the fact that people actually listen to most of or entire episodes of podcasts when they already start listening, which is great news, because if you consider the average length of a YouTube video, it's around 11 minutes. Obviously it constantly changes because it's such a dynamic medium, but around 11 minutes, short. While when you look at podcasts, a median length is 38 minutes. An average is even longer, 43. So podcasting is a long medium, and 38 or 43 is still actually short, because some podcasts, and you may have seen this photo from Joe Rogan Experience with Elon Musk doing what he does. And this particular episode lasted for 2.5 hours, right? And people listened. Now, what's important here is the fact that this time, when people listen, they spend with you as a podcaster, or your brand as the company that produces the podcast, which is great news, because time builds trust, and it's so important. This is a metric that you cannot really measure, but it's invaluable, right? And with podcasts being such a great medium for telling long stories, it's a sin not to use that chance, right? So tell long, gripping stories. Maybe not 2.5 hours long, but you can go longer than in video form. So focus on the quality of your relationship with listeners. That's a good practice. Okay, let's go to another don't, which is I'm going to record interviews with interesting people. And it's half the time when somebody's pitching a podcast to me, they say something like that, right? And there's so many podcasts that do this. So if you're not gonna stand out, your podcast is just gonna disappear. There's so many podcasts already everywhere in many languages. So if you want to be unique, if you want to stand out, you cannot just go for interviews with interesting people. There has to be something more. So how do you do that? Well, you should consider a triangle. And obviously, there are some things in the corners. And the first one is the subject and format. So you have to know what your podcast is going to be about. It shouldn't be about everything. You should focus down and narrow it down to some things. And in order to do that, it's good to know why people listen to podcasts at all. Most of the research shows that people listen to podcasts mostly because of two things. First being getting knowledge, and the other getting entertainment of some kind. So actually, edutainment is a sweet spot, and this is something that I would go for blindfolded, because there's a high chance that it's gonna get traction. Now, how do you make sure that your particular topic is going to be interesting? Well, you can obviously ask people that are going to be your listeners, but you can also think of it yourself. And there's a simple formula that helps doing so. And it's this. It's from Alex Blumberg, the CEO of Gimlet Media, one of the biggest podcasting companies in the world, bought by Spotify. And what he said is that you should consider every topic with this formula. I'm doing a story about X. It's interesting because Y. Simple, right? Now, an example. Some time ago, pre-pandemic, I was at a conference and I was reporting a story about speakers at that conference. Now, first things you may consider is, why is it interesting? Is, for example, it's interesting because they are interesting people, or they speak about interesting topics, or it's a big conference. It's a well-known conference, so it's interesting. But no, in reality, all these things are boring. So you actually have to go deeper and deeper and deeper and find something that is actually gripping and interesting for your audience. And what I came up with was the fact that these speakers, they seem calm on stage, but in reality, they're stressed as hell. And I know that because I was speaking at that conference as well. So I know that before going on stage, it's actually your heart is beating, it's pounding, and in the green rooms, speakers are rehearsing and they're pacing around because they're stressed. But the audience doesn't see that. The audience sees the speaker going on stage, delivering an amazing talk, and going off, and that's it. They don't see all this backstage. So this was important. This was interesting for people. This was something that was worth telling a story about, right? Now, the second part of the triangle is the goal you have for the podcast. And you should, well, the obvious goal is I want people to listen to it, but what's the goal for your business? What's the goal for yourself as a host, as a producer, as a creative? So you can have plenty of stuff you can do. For example, you can just use it as a content marketing and drive traffic to your website or to your e-commerce shop, right? You can create an employer branding podcast and drive and get more applications for to your company. Or you can talk about product and raise the awareness of the product. You can do a CSR podcast that is going to be connected to your values. And this particular example, I love it because it's Ben and Jerry's is an ice cream brand, and they are talking about equality. They're talking about history of racism in America and how it affected the society today and why was it bad, obviously. You can create a podcast that is sales-ish a bit and drive people to buy stuff that you are selling. You should focus on one goal, not all of them. But you can also have a goal. You can have a goal for the company. You can have a goal for the host. You can have a goal for the producer, etc., etc. And they can be all the same, but they can be different. But the main goal should be the same for everybody, obviously. And the last part of the triangle is the audience. And it's absolutely the most important part. You have to know who you are speaking to in order to make sure that the topic is going to land and the goal is going to get accomplished. Because otherwise, if you're preaching to the wrong choir, it's not going to work. And it's especially important. You have to narrow down your audience. It's especially important because the data shows that people are listening in 1 week to just 8 episodes of podcasts, which are part of 5 shows only, right? So it's very few shows that people listen to. And in order to get yourself there, to be one of the 8 episodes they listen to, or even one of the 32 episodes they listen in a month, you have to make sure that your podcast is going to be something special. So you have to put a lot of thought into the premise of your show at the very beginning. So you have to do a lot of pre-work in order for the podcast to actually become your audience's favorite podcast, which you should aim for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michal. That was an awesome presentation. I can say for one thing that we might have overlooked podcasting in our agency, but after that presentation, I'm gonna pay special attention to that. Seriously,
awesome.
that's very, very cool niche, and we will have a lot of questions for you at the end in the Q&A session.
Very good, very nice.
A couple of minutes if you'd like to add something after the presentation, and then we'll continue with the next speaker.
No, let's move on, and I'm really looking forward to the Q&A.
All right, great then. Moving on. Well, our next speaker comes from the United States. Her name is Monique Aidimudia, and I will tell you a couple of words about her. She will be talking about content is still king. Monique is the founder of Dragon Digital Marketing, a digital marketing agency for small businesses based in St. Petersburg, Florida. She is passionate about educating and inspiring small business owners to build an online presence and grow their business with the power of great digital marketing. She is an execution-driven consultant that not only just talks the talk, but also walks the walk. Besides running a digital agency, she enjoys speaking and serving as an educator. Well, Monique, we're very glad to have you here, and you have the floor to give us your presentation.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Monique Aidimudia, and I'm a digital marketer and the founder of Dragon Digital Marketing. We're an inbound digital marketing agency in St. Petersburg, Florida, and we help small businesses to build an online presence and grow organically with amazing content that gets attention, engagement, and generates brand awareness and leads. And you may have heard one of the following sayings: content is no longer king, or content is king, but engagement is queen and the lady rules the house. Or content is not king, consistency is king. But guess what? Without content, there is no engagement and there is nothing else. Content is the prerequisite for everything. Something has to get you that engagement and that brand awareness and allow you to be seen as a thought leader and get you leads and allow you to get found and discovered and seen in the first place, no matter if you're inbound or not. So content is still king, and every business needs content. Your content serves your business if it's the right content and if it's high quality content, because you can put bad content out there consistently and not see results at all. So what content should you put out there, and how do you know what serves your business and which content types serve your business best? Well, there's this thing called the content marketing matrix, and I like to use it a lot in my business, and I oftentimes refer to it. It's a matrix, and there's 4 quadrants: entertain, educate, convince, and inspire. And the different content types are spread out in this matrix, and I want to give you a few examples for each quadrant. Examples for entertaining content, for example, are quizzes, games, competitions, and challenges. Examples for educating content are guides, articles, books, infographics, press releases and news, demo videos, blog posts, reports, and white papers. Examples for convincing content are case studies, testimonials, reviews and recommendations, events, ratings, webinars, data sheets and price guides, calculations, your comparison content, and checklists. And examples for inspiring content are your quotes, your motivation, celebrity endorsements, success stories, and shows. So wherever you see the biggest drop off in your funnel, ask yourself if you are creating and promoting enough content for that stage of your funnel. If you generate a lot of leads and not a lot of sales, you are great at attracting people, but you need more convincing content that moves them to buy. And if you don't generate a lot of leads, your biggest issue is to fill up the top of your funnel, then create less salesy content and more content that educates about what it is that you do, answer questions, clarify definitions of jargon, and inspire and allow people to imagine themselves in the situation where their problems are solved through your products and services. Your content influences so much, and it can make or break a lot of things. Trust me, I'm a marketer and I'm inbound, and I create a lot of content every single day for myself and for my clients, and I evaluate and I analyze it. Now, video plays a big role nowadays, and a lot of people ask me about video content, and I pretty much always say the same thing. Video is my favorite type of content because people love to watch videos, and you can repurpose video content so well. You can cut it up in little audio snippets, make video stories, you can make video feed posts and highlights and compilations, take the audio and turn it into a podcast episode or an audiogram. You can take the transcript off a video and turn it into a blog post or an article, make shorter social media posts of that big article, all the way down to a 280 character tweet that you can put on Twitter. You can design a graphic that visualizes what you say in the video, just your main points, and you can share that on your website or with your email list or on social media, everywhere really. And video allows people to see you talk and move and how you are as a person, your mimics, your gestures, your accent, if you have one, really your whole vibe. And it helps to build relationships really, really well, better than almost any other form of content out there. And you simply cannot afford to miss out on this opportunity for your business. You have to overcome your camera shyness, if that's the reason why you haven't gotten into video yet, and record videos for your business and for your brand if you're not doing so already. Now, in addition to that, there is also something called the stages of awareness. And this concept is important when you create content that your audience will see as they move along the buyer's journey. And there are 4 stages of awareness: completely unaware, problem and solution aware, product or service aware, and the most aware. Now, why is this important? Because you create content for your customers and your potential customers, so you actually have to take a step back and pause and think about them and put yourself in their shoes. Imagine how a person that is completely new to you and what you do thinks and knows. A person with no knowledge of anything except perhaps their own identity and opinion, that has little sense of having pain and no sense of your solutions, cannot be shown content that contains any jargon or anything about your product or service just yet. They need to see super basic content, introducing the problem to them and make them aware of the fact that a certain thing that they're doing or a way that they're dealing or handling a certain thing is wrong or it's inefficient and it could be improved. And that's it, super basic. Do you have basic content like that? Or is all your content about your products and your services and discount offers and whatnot? In the next stage, problem and solution aware, a person senses that there's a problem and they start to feel their own pain, but they don't know that there's a solution yet. They know the results that they want, but they don't know that you can provide it yet. And this is where you talk about your solutions and paint a picture of a better future. You're still not promoting your services and products to those people yet. They are simply not ready. A person that knows what you sell but sees no need in it for them puts you in a pigeonhole and will remember you as that. And once you're in a box, you're in that box and it's hard to get out of it. And when they realize that they could use your product or service, they might get it from someone else who has done a better job at helping them understand their own situation with their content. In the next stage, product or service aware, a person knows what we sell, but they aren't sure that it's right for them. They do seek a solution though, so you need to connect their pain with your solution. And in the most aware stage, a person knows our product or service and all they need to know is the deal. So we need to connect the pain with our solution and make them fully believe our solution solves their pain. And this is what most of us are already good at doing, creating content for, but we can't neglect the other stages. That's so important because if we're only targeting people that are aware of us and our solution and what we do and how we can help them and solve their pains, we're missing out on a huge, over 90% chunk of our target audience because the majority of people are just not ready. So in a nutshell, what I'm recommending is to create a lot of content. You don't need to tell a different story every time, but rather tell the same story in many, many different ways for different people that are in different stages on their journey to becoming your customer. You shouldn't even be telling a lot of different stories every time, but stand for one thing and work on being known for that one thing. Stop missing out on resonating with the majority of people in your market by jumping forward and only creating content for people that are further ahead because those are the minority and you're leaving business on the table for your competitors to snatch away from you simply by having better content. Leverage videos and use the frameworks that I've mentioned and create your own content matrix. Maybe one or more quadrants are totally underrepresented in your business or overrepresented, and then you know what you have to do and what you have to create more of. Make an effort to see the world in your customer's eyes and truly understand the buyer's journey. It's a whole journey. It takes time, it takes nurturing, and it takes patience and consistency. And it can take your business to new heights if you figure it out and you do it right. Maybe even to the point where you don't have to spend money on ads anymore and become completely inbound and market yourself organically through your content, which is what I specialize in. Thank you so much. I am Monique Idimudia from Dragon Digital Marketing. You can learn more about me by connecting with me on LinkedIn or simply Googling Monique Idimudia or Dragon Digital Marketing, and you can see how my name is spelled in the bottom left corner of your screen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monique. It was quite an interesting talk. I myself have a few questions that I would like to ask you at the end in the Q&A session. We also have other questions coming. We'll reserve them for later. And we will move on so that we have more time for the questions. I'm very excited about that. Our next speaker comes from the United Kingdom. Her name is Alex Cull, and she will talk about content of a king, budget of a pauper. That is quite an interesting topic, and I can't wait to hear it. Let me tell you something more about Alex first. She became Global Marketing Director at only the age of 28. She has over a decade of B2B marketing experience, working in a range of small to medium-sized companies. Working in several industries such as pharmaceuticals, construction, and education, Alex has had both hands-on and strategic experience throughout her career, gaining a unique insight into winning formulas for startup and scale-up companies. Alex is a published author and currently runs the marketing function at Magna High, an online learning company. Well, Alex, that is impressive resume, and we can't wait for your presentation. You have the floor.
Thank you, Dimitar. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Hope you're having a good time. Just to say, I'm loving the presentation so far. It's been fascinating to hear everyone else's talk. So you've got a brief background of me and what I do, but I think the reason I kind of chose this topic to present to you guys today is this is experience that I've built through the various kind of roles I've done. So I've worked in lots of industries, as Dimitar said, and from that and the size of the businesses I've worked with, what I'm trying to hopefully give for you today is some very practical and hopefully useful tips that you can take away in terms of creating content for your business. So why is content still king? I won't labor this too much. Obviously, Monique's just done a brilliant presentation on why it is still really important. But 93%, so that is the amount of marketers who are using a content strategy as part of their overall marketing strategy for their business. So in a nutshell, everyone's doing it. And 7% of, I'm curious to know how they are surviving without it. It is fundamental. And the reason shown is the other number of 6 times more likely. So that is actually your 6 times more likely to convert a marketing lead into a deal if you're using a content strategy as part of that kind of sales funnel. So in a nutshell, everyone is still doing it, and it does actually pay off. So it's very apparent that content is still king in the marketing world. But like I've said, what do you do when you don't necessarily have the budget to support this? And I'm doing this based on, like I've said, I've worked in many kind of smaller startup businesses. So this is kind of the practical advice I can give to people. So whether it's been because of the pandemic that your budget may have been slashed or removed entirely, I can personally vouch for that. Mine has been. We're all being impacted by the economy downturn, and sometimes you just have to make do with the budget that you've been given. You may be a one-man band. This may be a one-man band in terms of the business as a whole. You're running an entire business on your own, or equally, you may just be an individual function of a marketing within a business. Like I said, I've been in that position before. And in that place, you are very unlikely to have a dedicated content team or the resources to be able to fulfill that. Or just for any general reason, it may just be that you have had your budgets cut. So what I'm going to hopefully try and do is give you an insight and some useful tips on how you can try and create some content to underline your strategy moving forward. So like I've said, here's 5 top tips that I have found when it comes to actually creating the content. It's not so much about the scheduling, it's more about actually creating visually how it would look. So the first step you guys need to do, you need to actually find that information. So being someone that's hopped from industry to industry, I've walked into a job knowing that, my marketing was likely to have content creation and not having the expertise myself of that industry to be able to create the content. So at the moment, I currently work in the education space. I then need to know how to talk to teachers, but at that point, I don't know. So the first place when you're looking for sources of information is your people. So the first step I would go to is my colleagues. So I'm really fortunate in the team that I work in. I actually have a lot of ex-teachers who used to be in that profession and have come to our business. So I go to them. They are, insightful, brilliant people who can help me get some information, get some facts, or point me in the right direction of information that I can then use to start creating some content. The next people I put are cheerleaders. So these are people who may just be talking about your brand, hopefully in a very positive way, if not just aware of you, but you may not actually be engaging with them yet. They may not even be a paying customer. Again, similarly, where I am, we have free trial as part of our product. So we'll have a lot of people talking about us who aren't actually paying yet. The way to look for these people is through social media. So I personally use Hootsuite as our social media management platform tool. There are many else out there, but what I like to do with Hootsuite is actually do a listening channel for keywords. So this would be looking for my company name, not just people who are tagging your handle. So once you then start to find these people, you can then reach out to them, start having conversations. You can then bring them on board for product testing, and using that narrative with them, you can create blogs, videos, quotes, anything that can really help to build out your content. And then the last one is customers. So again, customers like to be heard. You like to talk to your customers. You usually like to ask for feedback, but they are actually a very good source for case studies, infographics, quotes again. So they are people who want to be listened to. So there's a very good opportunity to actually open a dialogue with them, build a good relationship with them, and give them a platform. An example, like I said, recently I'm doing a piece with one of our special needs schools in the UK. They want to raise awareness about how they've been struggling in the pandemic. We equally want to be putting our name out there. So it was a really good opportunity for both of us to work on this piece together. So you've got your information, you know what you want to put into your content. The next piece I always need to say to my team is be authentic. None of us really have the Google marketing budgets as much as we would like them. And this is, like I'm saying, this presentation is about if you do not have huge budget. So don't stress that these videos need to be paid £30,000 to make them look professional. There is a time and place for those kind of videos, say a corporate reel. That's the time when you would invest into that. But equally, if you are doing a content strategy, which obviously is about the consistency, you should be as authentic as possible to your brand. As some of the speakers have said before, using your camera and videos can actually be beneficial if you're putting out this content on social media. For example, if anyone is actually on TikTok, you would see that the ads that are now coming through on streams tend to be so identifiable to previous, you wouldn't actually realize that they are an ad because of how they are being constructed. So all I'm trying to say is be authentic, realize that people buy from people. So don't feel like you have to perceive your brand as a big shot. You can be humble, and people will probably find that more relatable and more engaging because you're being transparent and open about yourself. Thirdly, so this is what I'm saying, if you're fortunate to have any budget, the first place I would look to go is designers. So I'm very lucky. I have 2 designers in my team who actually understand me. And I've actually put a working example that I'm doing with them at the moment. So I have the creative capacity of a teaspoon. I can say this. I cannot draw, design anything. So what I do is I'll think of the idea, I'll pull the information from the relevant sources, and I will go to my designers. And this is what I give them. They have to try and decipher what comes from my head and make it into something. And they do. And what you can see below is actually just a working example we're doing. That was the first draft. But what that shows is actually they know how to make pieces that look professional, that are in brand, that solve the objective I want them to do. This was a very informative piece for our teacher audience. So it's just an example of the fact that designers are highly qualified, experienced people. So if you can afford one, I would 100% recommend one. However, like I've said, not everyone has the budget for designers. They are full-time salaries, and even part-time salaries may be a challenge. So I would recommend going to places like Fiverr or to agencies of similar. So Fiverr is actually a marketplace for freelance designers and a lot of other creatives too. So I currently still use Fiverr, even though I've got designers in my team. I use Fiverr to help with video animation and with voiceovers currently to make some of our videos, which we still do in-house. But Fiverr is a great way to source some freelance designers on a project-by-project basis to keep the costs down. So if you had any budget, this is my first port of call, a recommendation on where it should go for your content strategy. But like I've said, that's a luxury to be able to have designers in your team, or even to get freelancers or agencies to help you. If you are really starting from scratch, if you have a real very small amount to work with and you have to do it yourself, I've used these tools. There are multiple out there, but the key is find the tools that work for you. Luckily, the industry is evolving so that some of these tools are a lot more user-friendly and they're a bit easier to use for people like myself, and likewise for people who don't have design qualifications. So I've just listed these three, but like I've said, there's loads out there. So do your research, look for these pieces that will help you to actually visually create your content pieces. So just to quickly go through these three that I've kind of used. Xeros is actually, it's probably one of the most expensive out the three that I've recommended. So this is an experiential kind of content marketing piece. It's more about the visuals and the animations. There's other similars out there like Ion, but yeah, I think they do a free trial as well, so you can really get to understand. But like I said, that's quite a sophisticated tool out of the ones I've recommended. Canva, I'm sure everyone's heard of Canva. They again have some very decent packages and also a free trial. Canva is a great way to visually collect all that information to make infographics, social media posts, very static imagery. So Canva is definitely a very good tool, and it helps with the alignment and things. So it's kind of like a Photoshop for dummies. And then the last one I've put is Adobe Spark. Now, I don't think many people have heard of this. And when you say Adobe, you immediately think Photoshop and InDesign, and you run for the hills because you aren't qualified in those skills. Adobe Spark actually has three tools underneath it. So one of them is actually a video creation tool. So if, you know, After Effects isn't your thing and you find video creation a bit overwhelming, Adobe Spark actually is a very simplistic, easy to use video editing tool in it. There's also two other tools within there. So there's one that helps build landing pages, and there's also one that helps design social media posts. And the reason I've put this in and how I know about this is because I actually did a partnership with Adobe a couple of years ago. And the reason they came to us was because they were trying to get Adobe Spark into schools with children. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if Adobe Spark is usable for kids in schools, then hopefully if you're like me and not very creatively clever, then it is usable for you as well. And then last but not least, waste not, want not. So you've put in all this effort, you've created this amazing piece of content, you put it out on all the relevant channels for every user to see. That doesn't necessarily mean that is the end of that piece of content. So there's various things you can do with that. So the first option is to re-edit this. You can rehash this, redesign it, tweak the wording. You can change it, crop it, change the format that it's in and put it into different areas. It doesn't mean that information has to die when you've only posted it once. An example would be if you've got a top 10 infographic, the top 10 tips for marketing, that top 10 could then become a top 5, a top 3. You could take one and make it into a visual quote for your social media to draw people to that blog. There's various ways you can reuse that information, so don't fill up in one go. Likewise, you can simply just recycle it. So if you've posted it now, it may still be relevant in 6 months' time, in a year's time. And those people who have read it originally would not get offended seeing that again. If anything, they may click again for a refresh of the content if it is valuable. But equally, if not, the aim is to get it in front of new users. So don't feel like, I know I said I wouldn't mention scheduling, but if you're scheduling this out, you know you can use this probably multiple times if you've put in a good amount of effort. And then the last piece, like I've said, is what every marketing person aims for, is making evergreen content. Now, this isn't for every piece of content that you'll create, and it also doesn't mean getting stuck in the Suez Canal. What this is actually creating something that doesn't necessarily have a timestamp on it. So it will be very searchable on Google. It'll be something that isn't just relevant to 2021. Let's say it's something that would be evergreen. So whenever you're making content, don't think like it's going to be a waste of time. You know, it is a lot of effort, it is a lot of resource, but the benefits are obviously there. And that's it. So like I said, kind of rush through. I'm really keen to get to Q&A as well. I hope people found that interesting and at least found one tip that they can take away from it. And yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Alex. We found much more than one tips from your speech, and we can't wait for Q&A because we have some questions coming your way. I will move forward now so that we can introduce our next speaker, and he will be our last speaker for today, after which we'll have the Q&A session and we'll freely talk with all the people that presented today. So next we have Fabian Qualman from Germany. And Fabian will talk about the importance of great stories. Fabian has quite an interesting background. First, he took a very traditional career path after school and worked as a bank clerk. When he spent a lot of money on training himself, but there were no development opportunities available, he decided to look elsewhere. This is how his interest in online marketing came about. After years in the SEA business, he continues to evolve and reinvent himself. In addition to his training as a speaker, he is also training as a part-time moderator to perform at events. And if I knew that, I would have used you to be a part-time moderator in our event as well. Now you have the floor and we're eager to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Dimitar. Yes, I'm Fabian Qualman, and I have two questions for you. The first one is, have you ever heard a strange story and wondered, what on earth is going on right now here? And the second one is, and do you like to tell stories while people listen to you with excitement and attention? Well, when this is the case, then I may bring you up some ideas in the next 10 minutes. My name is Fabian Qualman, as I said, and here's a quick presentation why a great story is such important. And for this, it doesn't matter if you're a creator, an entrepreneur, or a marketer, or just a mom and dad who loves to tell stories to their children. I like to start with a big thank you for having me here and the opportunity to share my thoughts with this great community here. So first, I like to do some promises for this community for the next few minutes. The first one is, in this presentation, you will learn something about yourself and your life you may not have been aware of. The second one is that you will find out that digging up your stories can actually be a lot of fun. The third one is, I'm going to show you a tactic to place your relevant stories to get users to do what you want them to do. And after this, and this is the fourth one, after this presentation, you will be able to analyze your stories and to rank them in such a way that is beneficial to you. So, do you know what stories stick in people's ears? They are the stories that are told at the right time to match the emotional mood. And it's the mysterious stories like myths or heroic tales. And this is the point where you're normally asking yourself, and how this is gonna helping me here? For this, let us quickly break down a story into its flow. So, because you can remember this sequence, it's always the same. And it will also provide, and I will also provide you with a translation for your company. So here we go. First of all, for sure, you have a protagonist. Someone or something drives him out of his previous world, so his old world, and the protagonist wants to move or change something. The protagonist in this case can also be your company or your product. It's like this, isn't it? When you release a product, when you will release a product, when you or you will only release a product when you like to change something, won't you? For sure. So the protagonist now pursues a certain goal, which runs like a thread through all the story. This can be a new project or a new deal you have to, or a cooperation or a challenge you're struggling with. So, and here comes the most important thing. Your story needs a change. Without a change, your story is not a story. I mean, no one will follow you or your story if there's no change, because it's quite boring in this case. For example, if you tell how you go up as usual this morning and drove to the office. With this story, you're not reaching anyone. So that doesn't make you a superhero. Your protagonist, or your company in this case, needs a change or a conflict. So the protagonist has to overcome obstacles or setbacks. And what also cannot be missing, and this is also important, is a result. What did the protagonist learn from it? What kind of learnings and new challenges does he take with him, with her? And let me give you an extra tip in this case. Never end your story completely. It's like a telenovela, your story. Leave questions open so that the potential users wants to continue watching, and also looks at your next challenge, because there will be more challenges. It's not, for this example, it's not for nothing that, for example, a Game of Thrones took almost 6 seasons to resolve who those white monsters are in the first 5 minutes in the first season. So a story is not created from answers, but from questions. Keep that in mind. So, and here's the definition of a story, and it's quite simple. Here we go. It's just Wikipedia, nothing special. A story is an account of past events in someone's life or in the development of something. And when you hear these words, from this it becomes clear. You don't need a mystery like a fairy tale or something like this. Seriously, everybody has his stories. You just need to observe your life with open eyes, and you will notice that many small puzzle pieces that build together a story. And you're gonna tell a story with this. You don't have to make up anything, seriously. Our life is quite excited. Or is your life running a little smoothly? Or doesn't your business have to change or have to do with challenges? Or is your product not struggling in the marketplace? I guess not. I think these are questions which make obvious that you have a lot of questions. A famous person in marketing, Gary Vaynerchuk, once said, "Document your journey. Document your hustle, your daily hustle. You have a daily hustle. So don't create anything, just document." And this is the tip, just start with that. You like to see how a hero was born, grows up, and develops, don't you? Exactly, and the audience too. So start with it. In fact, you could be filming yourself with camera all the time. Here's another tip. Don't do or say anything anymore without running a video. And you will realize that you actually have to tell, which is also relevant and interesting for others. If you're not recording stories, at least write them down. You will quickly realize that you have many times more stories in store than you thought. And please never explain the plot. Trust your audience to understand the end. And if you collect your stories like this, you can also sort them right away, because not every story is right for every moment. And there were some questions in this case in the Q&A. So this is perfectly match here. Yes, because not every story is right for every moment, or rather, we should say the emotion we want to trigger. There are 3 moments we need to distinguish between to better understand when I need which story: dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. The first one, dopamine, keeps your audience glued to your lips. You create a focus on you or your brand or your product through excitement. And the second one is oxytocin. That makes you seem more human or creates trust and empathy. And there's a third one, endorphins, which make your audience relax, create laughter and sympathy. By the way, there are two more humans, but that we definitely don't want to spill with our stories. It's cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones are responsible for feelings of irritation, criticism, or detraction. So as you see, you can probably match all your stories you like to tell to one of these three hormones. And if you do this, you will have something like a magic box for you. No matter what situation you have, no matter what emotion you want to trigger, you will always know the right story. So, to put it all in a nutshell, first of all, start walking through the world with open eyes. The second one is remember all wise thoughts and actions of you and record them in some way or write them down. And the third one is start and write your own story. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabian. That was also very interesting, and we already have some questions for it as well. So I will move to the Q&A session where all of our speakers will answer questions that you have given. And please don't forget that while answering these questions, while we talk here, you can keep writing questions. Just keep coming at us. We're going to answer as many questions as we can. So I would like to go back to Liras and ask her the first question right away so that we have more time to discuss. We got a question in the beginning. In your opinion, how can a content creator emotionally influence his audience?
That's a great question. I think that we can always talk from our own experience, from our own day-to-day life. The more people can relate to you, like what do you do on your day-to-day? If you're a parent, so talk about your struggles. Don't make everything like Instagram laughs and smiles. The life is challenging with little kids. So if you're a parent and you have a blog or an e-commerce, that's something that you can also relate, that the audience can relate to you, and you can also engage with the audience like this. And I think like talking from your experience on the day-to-day challenges, struggles, mistakes that you have made, to show that you're a human, like not something that is not reachable as an e-commerce owner or stuff like that, or a brand owner. Make someone that can just see you as a human being that makes mistakes and learn from it, and also has some challenges on their day-to-day, and write about it, talk about it, create some content around it, create videos around it. You can choose what type of content to produce, but the idea is pretty clear.
That is great advice, and actually we give similar advice to our partners to try to become human for their customers and clients, because humans get emotionally attached to other human. They rarely get emotionally attached to objects or just brands. And I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. How would you suggest to a brand show their humanity? For example, it's a brand with 200 employees and SEOs and stuff. How they can show their humanity to their customers and get them attached to them?
There's a lot of good opportunities that COVID made, and also like before COVID, we had some paternity leaves or things like that you can always show like gratitude, also not to mommies but also to new daddies, and show them like, okay, we understand like a new daddy should also get like opportunity to spend some time, maybe to show life-work balance more deeply in the organization, and then just to make sure that you're seeing your employees as human beings as well as someone that has lives except work. And this is very important. Also, for HR purposes, but not only that, like when an employee sees you as a boss, that you're treating him like as a human being, as a person with a whole life around you. That is something that the customers also can see and talk about it. It's a good opportunity to PR and talk about it and go into conferences that relates to it and talk about it. Take this cause and make sure it's well talked. So there's a lot of options for this. And also with COVID, there's a lot of organizations that just took the opportunity and cut days in office hours, make a lot of perks for their employees instead of working in the office. So they had a lot of opportunities there for online treats that they got, or you're getting into your home like a cocktail set and you're having like a happy hour with all the companies. So all those little things that help you just to be more emotional attached to your work, but also the audiences outside the organization can always see and talk about it if it's spread on your social media as well.
So in other words, companies should not be shy and just invite their customers and clients over behind the scenes.
Totally. That's a good opportunity always. And, always show like a secret product that we're sharing if you want to be like invite only webinar series, or we need your help, talk with us, and we want to improve. Just talk with your audience and your employees as, the basic level, not be, as a brand, just a human being looking in the eye and just like talk with them. That's the best thing that ever works for everyone.
I don't know where I heard that, but recently there was a saying that there is no B2B and B2C anymore. It's H to H, human to human. So that really goes into what you're saying here.
Exactly.
That is awesome. I'll have another question for you though. Just give me a second. So who would you say that every e-commerce should open a blog?
No, I think that there are a lot of good e-commerce today and that are not into blog, and it's okay. It's totally okay. There's a lot of places on your website that you can place content in, product content, how-to guides inside the product details. I think all of that is also content. It's not supposed to be only blog content. If you want to reach top of the funnel audiences and traffic, and to make this traffic convert, so yes, you should open like a blog, articles, magazine, or things like that. But not every e-commerce should open a blog. Blog is 10 years back. We're way behind it, like with content marketing efforts. So I think we're ahead of it. So just think of, as I said, like before, like outside of the box, what's interesting for your audience and what's going to be the most engaging content for them. You can also use the community power. If you have a community around you that you've already built on social media, have a talk with them and understand what will be interesting for them to know. For gaming niche or things like that, yeah, so gaming is a very powerful with a community. So you have clans or things like that, always up for a discussion with a clan or seeing an interview with some leading clan or a clan creator. So maybe these are the things that can help you engage with your customers. So every niche has its own challenges and own ideas to add more content to your e-commerce, not only blog.
So basically, you should try to figure out what your audience like to consume as type of content, and kind of give the content in that form.
Exactly.
And nowadays, it's not a secret to anyone that the video is consumed very much. Would you say that there is some type of combination between a blog and a video, not only vlog, not only blog, something in between that can work well nowadays?
I think that if you are creating like video and you're a video creator, I think that you can create a lot of things with it. Also with Instagram stories, also with, of course, YouTube. But also if you want to incorporate inside of your website, so transcript can go great along with it. So also for SEO, also for search engines, and also for people that, I don't know, maybe they don't want to watch the movie or the video, and they want to read and just scan what you're talking about inside of it. So you can create a lot of things also written from, you can repurpose the video that you're creating and use it like in every single day. Also via recorded webinars that you can just use it as a recorded session. So, you know, when we're creating content in mind, think what kind of repurposing can I do with it? Because it takes so much time and effort to create a content, to create a good article piece, to create a good video marketing. And we want to squeeze this lemon as much as we can in order, you know, to get as much ROI as we can. And you can create it as take this video and have it on a resource center or a gated content, everything that can basically help you to generate more and more and more from this effort.
I'm very glad that you mentioned squeezing the lemon, because our next question is, when you're limited on resources or budget, how can you create content?
That's great. Small, medium businesses are basically local owners, like local small businesses. Usually these are the questions that arise, and you know, they don't have the budget to pay for a content writer. They need to write everything by themselves. So the most of the things that are really important for us is to be more focused. What can bring me traffic, but also effortless. So we can target more long tails questions that people are asking. So this content that you're already creating can be fast ranked on search engines or bringing the audience that you need. So that can be like really effortless from your end. It can be a video that you're shooting, and then we can just create the transcript. You can just dictate everything and just, you know, let the automation do the work for you and just have someone to proofreading it for you. And of course, if you have like a community that can help you generate content, you know, you can create like top 6 happy clients that can discuss about their challenges or top mistakes or things that can be interesting for the audience to read. So that's an easygoing content that you can basically creating. So just think of, you know, we'll look at like a graph. So it can be like bringing the ROI faster and effortless from your side, like, or minimum effort from your end, because, you know, you got to run your business in the end of the day. And once that's kicking in, so you can create a budget and then move forward with more content creation, maybe to give it for another person in the team or to outsource it.
I guess that something that's working on our site nowadays is that authentic content is very, very well appreciated. So
sure.
You don't need to just make it too flashy or too professional looking. Actually, as you said, maybe you can bring in your customers and they can be a part of the content that you create, and that way, you know, you will have an authentic content that maybe you can even ask them to share photos and different types. So yeah, that is very interesting, and there is different types of content that you can consume, and one user, he can consume many types of content depending on his situation. For example, sometimes I like to watch video if I have the time. Sometimes I would read an article if I'm riding the train and I cannot watch a video, or just and sometimes in my car I can listen to podcasts.
Yeah,
yeah.
Totally.
And talking about podcasting, we have Michal brought us into this world of podcasting today, and we have some questions for him as well that I would like to ask him. First, can you tell us who should or who shouldn't create a podcast? Is there someone that should not just dive into that?
Yeah, that's a good one. So if you think that podcasts are trendy, well, you're right, but it's not a reason to start a podcast. I mean, if you just want to start it just because, it's not a good one. Also, you should consider what kind of business do you lead, and whether podcasts are actually something that is going to be useful for you. You should consider if you are committed enough to create a podcast, obviously if you create it on your own, or if you have the resources to outsource the production process. So there's the triangle that I told you about during my speech. That's also something to consider. Is your audience actually listening to podcasts at all or not? The podcast audience is very wide, but the it's mostly people that are better educated than the average citizen. They earn more. They live in bigger cities. They are younger. So let's say if you want to target people that live in the countryside and they are quite old, probably not a good fit. So so there's many things you should consider. But if you're a brand that wants to target that very group, that is the biggest group of podcast listeners, that's a perfect medium. If you're committed enough to create the content, sure, go for it.
I have a couple of questions myself here. Well, it's very. You mentioned during your speak that if you want to get in on podcasting, you have to consider at least some minimal investment into devices that will bring up the quality of the sounds that you're producing. Because of course, low quality sound can tire the ear, the listener, and you may not be perceived that well. But what I'm wondering is, other than the equipment, is there something else that you can train your voice so that you're perceived better? Because I've heard this, I'm not sure if it's true, maybe you're gonna say that deeper voices are better perceived and easier to listen to.
Yeah, there's a thing that I've supposedly we vote for politicians with deeper voices. That's the notion as well. And you can train your voice, obviously, if you are committed. It's sort of like going to the gym and working on your body. So in more or less the same way, you can work on your voice. Actually, some exercises are doing both, because you have to work on your on the muscles you have on your belly, because they help with the I'm not really qualified to speak about that in English. In Polish it would be a lot easier, but it's easier for your air to get out if you squeeze it more. So if your muscles on your tummy are stronger, it's easier. So that's one thing. You can work on your voice. Where is it? Is it deeper, like here, or is it somewhere higher? So there's so many things you can do, and one of the easiest exercises I would go for is watching videos on YouTube of speeches of some sort of maybe TED Talks, because they have subtitles, which is easy, and then repeating the talk with the speaker, and go for a speech that is actually varies in the tempo, in the pitch, and the speaker changes their voice all the time. Sorry, because that's going to be the best option for you. And the thing very often is that we don't know the possibilities of our own voice. So we are used to speaking in the same way all the time, but in reality, our voice is capable of so much more. So we have to discover it. And once we discover it, it's already easier to use all these different features that our voice has.
Great. That is great advice. And as long as somebody is committed and wants to do podcasting, I have another question. How do you, when you start in the very beginning, you have no listeners. How do you reach your first listeners? Like, what are your advice to get in there? You know, do you use ads, or do you just get yourself into channels that people were talking about more and they can see you?
So for the first listener, you send it to your mom. No, obviously you can, but if you have any channels already, it's well, good to use them, right? So any social media channels, even if it's private channels, then just go for it, share it, and already some listeners will come. but unfortunately, the discoverability in podcasting is quite an issue. And because of that, you actually, if you're a brand and you really want to reach out to as many people as possible, it's beneficial to do some advertising. And the absolute best way to do it is to advertise on other podcasts that already have audience that you want to reach, right? Because these are people that already listen to podcasts, so you don't have to convince anyone to get into that medium. And if you pick the right podcast to advertise on, they have more or less the same audience that you want to reach. So you have a higher chance of getting them to listen to you. And it's not to say that it should be a podcast about the same topic with the same goal and the same audience. No, it can be a different topic, but just the audience is the same. So you don't have to worry about being a competition for them. And besides, you are going to have to pay for the advertising anyway. So it's not like they are going to treat you like an enemy or something.
Great. There is so many like obvious benefits of podcasting that we learned from your presentation and from your speak now. But can you tell us what are the non-obvious benefits you get from creating a podcast?
Well, yeah, because there actually are quite some. The obvious one is that people are going to listen to you, but there are things that people don't think about, like if you have an interview podcast and you invite guests, you actually do some networking with them, right? So you can create a podcast where you invite people that are your target audience. And it's great for B2B companies, because then you can invite somebody from a company that you want as a client and then interview them. Obviously, it cannot be just an empty interview and just an empty invitation like, hey, I want you to be my client, so I'm going to invite you. I don't know why, but this is the reason, right? So it cannot be like that. But if there's a real reason behind it, they did some awesome projects that you want to talk about and you want to get some knowledge from them. You want the listeners to get their perspective on some topic that you're regularly talking about in the podcast. That's fine. Then you can invite them, and you get something awesome for your audience, and you do some networking. So this is great. Other non-obvious reason is you build your brand as a host if you're hosting the thing, because obviously you can hire somebody to do it, or within the company you can have plenty of people. But it's good to treat the host not only as a person that is doing the job of hosting, but also kind of an ambassador of the podcast, and then boost their brand. And therefore, the podcast is going to get a boost as well, and everybody wins. It's a win-win situation. So it's great to do that. So these are the main non-obvious reasons to do podcasting.
Awesome tips. I will say that podcasting can fill in such a gap when what the radio dropped out, because radio stations used to be listened to so much, but with advertisements in between all the time, it's becoming like you don't listen to that much of radio anymore, rather than advertisements all the time. And in the car, maybe you can consume podcasts much easier.
Well, I think the bigger reason with the radio is that it's not on demand. So you have to either schedule your day if you want to listen to some particular program, or you just switch on the radio and listen to whatever is on, right? While with podcasting, you just play whatever you want to play.
This is the keyword, isn't it? Like Netflix,
right, yeah.
Like all these platforms that pop up, they're on demand. Like people want to just control what they're seeing and they're listening.
Yeah. I want something interesting and I want it now.
Yeah, well, I would like to bring up Monique into the conversation as well, because podcasting is very interesting, and she was talking about the different stages of awareness. I would like to ask her, where would you put podcasting in these 4 stages that you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Podcasting fits perfectly into pretty much any stage because it's a medium, it's a media format. You can create text content, audio content, video content, or image content, and you can basically create you can cover every topic in any of those content formats. So you can make a podcast episode about topics that are more top of funnel, topics that are more middle of funnel, topics that are more bottom of the funnel. Same with your videos, same with your articles that you write. So it fits in perfectly everywhere you want it to fit in. So you can use it across your entire buyer's journey or in your strategy. I mean, it's very, very personal. It depends on your business and what you want to achieve. You can also decide that, hey, for my brand, I strategically use podcasting just for awareness or just for this and that. So you can really pick and choose whatever makes you happy and whatever fits into your strategy and what plans and goals you have for your business.
If I may add something to that, because
You
podcasting
definitely
is thanks. Podcasting is great in terms of repurposing, because once you record an episode and it's, let's say, an hour long, you can cut out short fragments of the podcast and put them on a static video with subtitles and put it in social media, like 1-2 minute fragments, and then use it like that. Then you can take some quotes from your guest and put it on some images, and then you have graphics to use. You can write an article based on what the speaker was saying, or you can do a transcription of the podcast and then also use it on the website. And so there's and it's just a few ways, and you can do a lot more with whatever you get from the speaker. Obviously, you can record a video cast, so record the two people actually talking. It's not possible with all podcasts because there are different forms. But with the interviews, it's quite easy. So you can also do video interviews and put them on YouTube. So many different ways, and it's such a great thing that you can create just one main content, and then from it you can get so many different elements that you can use all around.
Great. Well, I have another question for Monique that is regarding the technology. How will today's technology change customers' expectations? How will today's technology change customers' expectations in terms of online content?
Yeah. So the more technology advances, the more you should advance, and you should go with the times. You want to be seen as state of the art and somebody who's professional, who's credible, who's an expert, who's trustworthy, someone who has authority in their field and they're a thought leader and they stay on top of things and just know what they're doing. So people want to do business with you. So you should move along with the technology and produce high quality videos. For example, now we have 4K, so you might want to get into that. Same with audio, have the best possible quality that you can possibly have with your content and aim to create the highest quality content that you can afford to create with your resources and with your budget and with your team, and always strive to be the best. You have to stand out. It's a crowded marketplace.
Yes, people nowadays don't like pixelated photos and blurry photos, right? Even the low budget phones now make good photos, so you just have to put in the effort and use the technology to your advantage. Guys, since we have some more questions that I'm going to be adding, but they're not specifically toward any of you. Like, I'm going to probably ask them to at somebody, but if any other of you have anything to add or anything to say about that question, feel free to just jump in. I'd love that kind of free discussion, not only like a Q&A, but something like a bit of a discussion that we can have here. So next, I have one question for Alex, actually, but if any of you would like to jump in, that will also be all right. So the question is, what are the advantages of multi-format content?
Yeah, absolutely. I think some people have touched on this already, but I think multi-format gives you the opportunity to get your messaging and your content out to as many people in varying circumstances and environments. So like you were saying previously, Dimitar, you will consume content in a variety of ways, depending on where you are. We're all extremely busy people. We may not have the time to sit and listen to an hour podcast, but equally, like you said, a snippet of 1 to 2 minutes on social media is enough to kind of gauge people's interest and then commit them at a later stage. And likewise, it's not just with individuals, it's actually if you are, as a company, having to market to a wide audience. So if you are looking at the older generations, obviously they will be more traditional. They would be looking at more written-based content. Equally, Gen Z, I work with students, so I know that their video content is key, and it's very short and it has to catch them within the first 2 seconds or they're not interested. So I think having a multi-format approach is quite crucial. And like we're saying, that repurposing of content is probably good in terms of the efficiency of your team as well.
I'm very glad that you said something about catching their attention, because I believe that not only young people nowadays, but we start becoming very hard to get our attention, because so much noise nowadays. And would you say that it's best for any type of content that you made for any kind of channel to use strategies to catch the user's attentions in the very beginning, in the first 3 seconds? Other than that, maybe you'll lose them.
Absolutely. I think in some channels it's probably more important than others. So with Facebook advertising, for example, they say if you do not actually portray something of interest or that will capture the message in the first 0.7 seconds, then you will lose that person, because the nature of a scroll in a social media means you could easily, swipe past that and not even see what it's there. So I think, like you said, capturing people at the beginning to be able to convey your message is crucial.
Well, since you spoke about design and designers in your talk, I would like to ask you, do you have any observations on where do good designs have best usability and then best effect? Because some areas, maybe photos are better, but in some channels, maybe design is what you should go for.
Yeah, I think it's really important on how you want to portray your brand. We've been talking about as marketing, we should be making our brands more human, and especially, my experience is in B2B, and that tends to be more, we should have stock images of people, but it's not very relatable. So I think you need to understand what kind of image you're trying to portray through your brand. So again, just using who I currently work for, we are an education online company for kids. So we have a lot of games and fun elements. So as you've probably seen from my avatar, I have animation, I have cartoons at my disposal for my content, but, we don't necessarily want to hide behind that. You do want to provide, a face to that. So it is really important to actually integrate with our content, images of the real people behind the company making it work. So I think it really does depend on how you want your brand to be perceived, which would help determine what you should use.
All right, and how do you keep your content looking high quality when you're not a designer? Do you only just use some tools, or is there some skills that you need?
Yeah, I think the first port of call I'd always go to is a brand style guide. So, if your company doesn't have one, it would even be potentially creating one yourself. And there's some basic kind of workshops that would help you understand, color contrasts and defining it. But it's more likely that your company has an existing style. They may just not even documented it yet. So have a look around, look at the fonts they're using, the colors they're using. And that's exactly what happened with the business I'm currently with. They had a brand, but they just hadn't documented it anywhere. So once we have that then gives a basis for anyone who's going to go creating content. Like, even if it is a non-designer, they'll be able to do something that looks high quality and consistent with the brand.
Yeah, because in a company, there might be many people creating content, and that might lead to some differences in styles and in presentation. So that is a good advice to create such a guide, and to have this guide on the way. I have another question, which is probably the $1 million question. How do you create evergreen content?
Yeah, so like I said in my presentation, do not think every piece you're going to do is evergreen. And if anything, I think at the moment with how the world is changing, it's difficult to make evergreen content, because what is relevant now, touch wood, won't be relevant in the future. We're hoping that this pandemic doesn't last forever. But if you are looking to make evergreen content, I think the key is finding that topic that is sustainable for the long term. So looking at the staples of, so again, a working example for me, I could look at how to integrate hybrid learning from distance learning teachers into the traditional classroom. That is very COVID related for my industry. That's basically saying to teachers how you can learn some of the benefits from Zoom in the classroom and how you can do that. Likewise, I would probably flip that topic and I would actually title it more along the lines of how to engage your students in the classroom, because then that is a topic that teachers would be searching on Google probably for the rest of their lives, because they're all wanting to know how to keep their kids engaged. So by making that small adjustment to the title, you can then actually get that content looked for regularly. And I'd also look at how the keywords you're using in that title, how they're trending, to make sure they have a consistent trend before you commit to an idea when you're trying to make it evergreen.
Where do you follow that trends? Which instruments do you use?
Yeah, just you Google Trends is the main ones to go to, and obviously there are kind of like SEMrush and all those other tools, but yeah, Google's an easy first place to start.
All right, that is great advice. Would you say that sometimes you might get into an evergreen content without even knowing? Just create content and things will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just a working example where I currently at, we have done a lot on distance learning, which is obviously what the education space has been pushed to in the last year, thinking it would just be a couple of months. Obviously, as this has gone on, distance learning is something that is probably going to be for the future as well, not just for now. So yeah, you can make this content thinking it might be short term, but you just don't know where the trends are going to go. And it may be something that's to stay, similar, to the podcast presentation. The podcast came in as a buzz and we thought, oh, that will die a death and we won't, podcasts will be outdated, but they're still here and they're still just as important. So, it is these things don't necessarily go the way you think they would. So yeah, you can easily stumble across evergreen without even realizing it.
I've heard somewhere that during that COVID times, education is actually one of the spheres that really boosted during COVID times. And what would you say were the challenges behind going all digital?
Yeah, I think, and this kind of lends itself into that multi-format question of how do you connect with, in education space, teachers are actually quite traditional. So they are more about the worksheets, the practical, actually engaging with their kids. So that was a huge challenge of actually connecting with an audience that wasn't ready for digital and got pushed into it, whether they liked it or not. And likewise, that was reciprocated in our business. So we were more of a traditional marketing approach, the events in person, visiting the schools, and then suddenly we are completely converting 100% to our digital and inbound strategy. So it was a huge shift, and it was just keeping ahead of the times and communicating that really managed to get us through that.
There are a lot of challenges in that what you said, like some typical person who has typically used another type of medium going digital, there is a mindset that that you have to change. I find it very interesting with the students and this kind of knowledge that you have, because in a way brands also try to educate their customers, and maybe the approach that you have digitally towards students and toward how to grab their attention and how to make them be interested is something that might work.
Sorry, you cut your mic muted then.
Sorry, yeah. I was saying that maybe this would work for brands as well, this approach that you have towards students.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, for my company, content is actually exactly what we do, but it's our products as well as the marketing strategy. So yeah, we create a lot of educational games and quizzes. And like you said, it's understanding the consumer behavior of them. And that is that engagement piece, which you can get on a marketing level as well. So really understanding what captures people's attention and why it does. enables you to actually take that, and especially like you said, from a student point of view, they will be the future consumers. So it is interesting to get in front of them, really understanding them, because they are completely different now. You know, they are a digital generation. They grew up with it. And like what was said earlier, you know, you need to be one step ahead of them. So yeah, tapping into a younger market is actually quite crucial to make sure your marketing stays on top.
And how important are stories in that mix?
Yeah, hugely. Like you said, it's an engagement piece that will capture you from beginning to end. So, you know, a lot of the games that we produce have a narrative behind them, and similarly, you know, any kind of games you play, there tends to be that story, because it is about the engagement you're trying to get with that. So it does play a huge part in that. And again, it links into that human element of your brand and how to kind of connect it all together. So I think storytelling is very important.
Since talking about storytelling, that I'm going to bring Fabian over if it's okay, because we have a question for him that is regarding storytelling. How to use the power of storytelling to boost your brand?
Oh, this is a good question, because I think in those times we got, actually you have to, because in the world, actually we have more possibilities for comparison. You can compare prices, products, and yeah, the difference is your story behind this, your story of your company, how you use those products, how you develop your company in this case. So I think this is your private or your personal boost, or your personal for your company. You need to use storytelling to be different.
Thank you very much. I'm just gonna say a quick goodbye to Liras, because she just let us know that we're just going on with our discussion here, and she needs to go. We were very happy to have you here, Liras, with us. You shared with us some awesome tips, and we're hoping that in the future we'll get to talk to each other again, and do something similar to that again. So we can continue with the discussion, and we have a couple of questions regarding the stories that everybody can jump in. First of all, Fabian, you talked about sequences in stories. How should I understand those sequences in storytelling, and does it make sense to separate my stories in sequences?
Yeah, it's a good question. But whether you like it or not, every story has sequences. So this happens automatically, but you can take your advantage from it. So normally there are 3 major sequences in every story, and this is protagonist in his world before and when he goes on adventure, the protagonist when he goes adventuring and has to pass trials and challenges, and the third one is the protagonist when he has proven himself or herself and learned and escapes maybe one last time from bad people or magic or don't know what, or the challenge, and returns to his old world with this knowledge he earned, or in more mystical way with his sword or something like this. But you can translate all the stories to your company or to your creator account. This is possible. You can divide all your stories in the sequences. Just think of Star Wars, for example. There's Luke Skywalker, and on his normal planet with his normal life, and he'd like to take care of his parents. In that case, up to a point where Obi-Wan appears. So, and this is this change for Luke Skywalker, because he was quite good in his life. Everything was perfect. He was okay with his life. But the change was destroying his home and the appearance of Obi-Wan. So might be like a mentor can be a peer and take you to the next level. This is the same for your company. When you take advantage of the sequences, you can like a emotional roller coaster. So yes, try to use the sequences for making good history, storytelling, and the people will hear your stories with excitement.
Cheers for that tips. Actually, mentioning Star Wars, it makes me, with this digital background, it makes me look like Obi-Wan's ghost. Even though it's lovely talking to you all, I'm really very grateful to be here and very glad to be able to meet you and talk to you on these topics. Now, obviously, we can go on for hours more. We have to bring this panel to an end, though, unfortunately. I'm very glad to keep in touch. I want to wish our viewers a great day and to keep following the Digital 4 events. There are some video streamings after this live panel is over. And I'm wishing you all a good day and have a great success in front of you. I'll definitely be keeping in touch with all the people that are speakers today.